The warm amber light filtered through the ancient stone corridors as Essen traced her fingers along the crystalline patterns embedded in the walls. Each step echoed with memories of her daughter, Nassun. Memories that burned like hot coals in her chest. The comm they'd entered held secrets, whispers of old magic that seemed to dance in the air. Through the connection of orogeny, she could feel the earth's pulse growing stronger, more erratic, as if responding to her presence. In the distance, a guardian's silver eyes flickered, watching, waiting. The tension in the air grew thick as honey, but far less sweet. As she ventured deeper into the heart of the comm, the walls began to hum with an otherworldly resonance, and she knew her daughter had been here. Nassun stood at the crossroads of destiny, her small hands trembling with power she never asked for. Guardian Shaffer's presence beside her was both comforting and terrifying, his silver eyes holding both love and an ancient hunger she couldn't quite understand. The chamber, they discovered, pulsed with orogene energy, making the very air shimmer like heat waves over desert sand. Ancient glyphs carved into the floor began to glow as she approached, responding to her power in ways that made even Schaffer step back in awe. The truth of what she could do, of what she was becoming, unfurled before her like a terrible flower blooming in darkness. As the chamber's secrets revealed themselves, she felt the weight of centuries pressing down upon her shoulders. The earth trembled as mother and daughter sensed each other's presence, their powers reaching across the distance like invisible tendrils. Essun's heart raced as she felt Nassun's signature, so familiar yet so changed. The ancient chamber's crystals sang with increasing intensity as their powers intertwined, creating harmonies that hadn't been heard since the ancient times. Guardian Schaffer's warnings echoed in Nassun's mind as the floor beneath them began to crack with the force of their combined power. The very air seemed to crystallize around them, time slowing to a crawl as mother and daughter stood at opposite ends of the vast chamber, each holding enough power to reshape the world or end it. The question wasn't if they would meet, but what would remain of the world when they did. In the depths of ancient ruins, Cyan traced her fingers along crystalline walls that pulsed with dormant power. The chamber's air felt thick with memories, each breath carrying whispers of a time when humanity wielded forces beyond imagination. As she ventured deeper, holographic scenes flickered to life around her, painting stories of a civilization that had reached for the stars. The projections showed cities floating among clouds, their spires gleaming with otherworldly energy. But beneath the grandeur, Cyan noticed something disturbing. Shadows of discord, of power misused. In the corner of her eye, something moved. The ruins weren't as abandoned as they seemed. Hoa's memories cascaded like a waterfall of silver light, each droplet a fragment of truth about humanity's greatest mistake. Through his eyes, we witnessed the council chambers where the fateful decisions were made, the laboratories where ambition exceeded wisdom. The air crackled with tension as Hoa revealed how the pursuit of ultimate control led to catastrophe. In the midst of his revelation, the chamber's crystals began to pulse with increasing intensity, their rhythm matching the mounting horror of the tale. When the final truth emerged, even the stones seemed to weep. The final pieces of the puzzle fell into place as Alabaster's theories merged with ancient reality. The holographic records showed the moment everything changed, when the earth first broke. The chamber trembled with the weight of this revelation, its crystals now glowing blood red. As the truth about the Guardians and their true purpose became clear, the very ground beneath their feet began to shift. The ancient security systems, dormant for millennia, suddenly hummed to life. In the distance, something massive stirred. The past was no longer content to remain buried, and its awakening threatened to shatter more than just their understanding of history. The ancient stone archway loomed before Essen, as twilight painted the sky in hues of amber and violet. Her footsteps echoed against weathered marble, each step bringing her closer to what she both yearned for and dreaded. The air hummed with residual magic, silver threads of power dancing at the edge of her consciousness. Behind her, Hoa's crystalline form shimmered with an inner light that cast strange shadows on the crumbling walls. The chamber ahead opened into a vast circular space, where moonlight filtered through a partially collapsed dome. There, amidst the ruins of a forgotten civilization, she saw the familiar silhouette that made her heart skip a beat. Nassun stood motionless, her young frame radiating power that made the very air crackle with tension. Mother and daughter, separated by more than just physical distance, faced each other in a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity. Steel Guardian's presence filled the chamber with an oppressive weight as memories of ages past swirled through the ancient stones. Nassun felt the weight of countless generations pressing against her consciousness, while Shafa's gentle touch on her shoulder anchored her to the present. The chamber's walls began to pulse with a soft, golden light as the old magic awakened, responding to the combined presence of such powerful origines. Patterns emerged in the stone, telling stories of a world before the seasons, before the breaking. Through the haze of power, Nassun caught glimpses of her mother's face, seeing for the first time the pain and determination that mirrored her own. The air grew thick with possibility as ancient mechanisms stirred beneath their feet. The chamber erupted into chaos as the accumulated power reached its breaking point. Hoa's warning came too late as the ancient safeguards failed, releasing waves of pure energy that threatened to tear reality apart. Essen moved instinctively, her power reaching out to protect her daughter, while Nassun's own abilities flared in response. Their combined strength created a maelstrom of forces that made the very foundations of the earth tremble. Shafa's voice cut through the chaos, his words carrying ancient wisdom that might save them all, if only they could bear the cost. As the chamber's magic reached its crescendo, mother and daughter faced a choice that would reshape not just their futures, but the fate of the world itself. The final price of power revealed itself in the gathering storm, leaving them mere moments to decide. The crystalline corridors pulsed with an otherworldly glow as Essen pressed her palm against the smooth surface, feeling the thrum of power beneath. The ancient chamber, vast and imposing, held secrets that made her heart race with both fear and anticipation. Behind her, Hoa's silver eyes reflected the ambient light, his stone-like features betraying a hint of concern. The air grew thick with orogeny, that familiar tingle that preceded something momentous. As they ventured deeper into the chamber, the walls began to whisper stories of the past, stories that made Essen's blood run cold. The chamber's center revealed a pedestal, atop which floated a sphere of pure energy, its surface rippling like disturbed water. "This is it," Hoa whispered, his voice carrying the weight of millennia, the key to everything we've sought. Nassun felt the change before she saw it, a shift in the very fabric of reality around her. Steele's teachings echoed in her mind as she channeled the raw energy surging through the ancient construct. The chamber's walls trembled, and for a moment, time itself seemed to pause. Through the haze of power, she caught glimpses of what could be, possibilities that both thrilled and terrified her. The construct's energy pulsed in sync with her heartbeat, each surge bringing forth visions of potential futures. But with each pulse, she felt something else, a cost, hidden in the shadows of power, waiting to claim its due. Steele's face showed a mixture of pride and fear as he watched his pupil grasp at forces beyond mortal understanding. The ground shook as two forces of nature approached their inevitable collision. Mother and daughter, each wielding power that could reshape continents, stood at opposite ends of their shared destiny. The ancient chamber's energy reached a crescendo, its light painting everything in stark contrasts of shadow and brilliance. Hoa and Steele, ancient beings who had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, could only watch as the fate of the world balanced on the edge of a knife. The air crackled with tension, orogeny and ancient magic intertwining in ways not seen since the world was young. As Essen reached out toward her daughter, the chamber's power surged one final time, and reality itself held its breath. The ancient chamber hummed with untold energy as Essen pressed her palm against the crystalline surface. Silver light pulsed beneath her fingers, responding to the orogeny flowing through her veins. The chamber's walls, adorned with forgotten symbols, seemed to whisper secrets of the past. Behind her, Hoa watched with his stone eyes, his presence both comforting and unsettling. The power building within the chamber grew until the very air crackled with potential. When the first surge came, it wasn't what any of them expected. The floor beneath them began to shift, not with the familiar tremors of earth power, but with something far more ancient and terrible. As the chamber's true purpose revealed itself, Essen realized they had stumbled upon something that could either save their world or tear it completely apart. Meanwhile, Nassun felt the change from thousands of miles away. The obelisks above her head began to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat, their black surfaces reflecting impossible colors. Shafa's silver eyes widened as he witnessed the transformation taking place within his ward. The power that had been building since Steele's revelation now threatened to overflow. The floating obelisks began to dance, first slowly, then with increasing speed, creating patterns that hadn't been seen since the ancient times. But as Nassun reached for this newfound power, something else reached back, something vast and hungry that had been waiting for countless millennia. The very air seemed to hold its breath as two forces, mother and daughter, unknowingly began to pull at opposite ends of the world's power. The convergence of power reached its peak as the ancient systems awakened fully for the first time in millennia. The obelisks across the entire world began to resonate in harmony, creating a web of pure energy that connected everything. In the chamber, Essen watched in horror as the silver light began to take shape, forming patterns she recognized from her studies of the Deadtiv. Above, Nassun felt the pull of something massive stirring deep within the earth. The ground itself seemed to breathe, and for a moment, both mother and daughter glimpsed the true nature of their world and the terrible choice that lay before them. As the power reached its crescendo, the very fabric of reality seemed to bend. And in that moment, both women realized that what they had unleashed could never be contained again. The air crackled with raw energy as Essen approached the towering crystal spires of the ancient city. Silver threads of power wove through the atmosphere, making her skin tingle with anticipation. Behind her, the ground trembled with each step, a reminder of the immense forces she now commanded. The city's crystalline structures reflected the dying sunlight in 1,000 different directions, creating an ethereal dance of light and shadow. As she ventured deeper into the heart of this forgotten place, whispers of the past echoed through her consciousness, carrying warnings of what was to come. The moment she had dreaded and anticipated for so long was finally at hand, and the weight of destiny pressed heavily upon her shoulders. Alabaster's teachings resonated in Essen's mind as she faced the impossible choice before her. The chamber pulsed with ancient magic, its walls alive with shifting patterns of light and dark. Nasan stood across the vast space, her young face set with determination that broke Essen's heart. Between them, the artifact of immense power hung suspended in mid-air, its surface rippling like liquid silver. The air grew thick with tension as mother and daughter circled each other, each movement a careful dance of power and restraint. The very foundations of the earth seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see which way fate would turn. The world itself seemed to pause as Essen made her final move. The chamber erupted in a cascade of power, raw energy surging through ancient conduits long dormant. Nasun's eyes widened as she realized what her mother intended, but it was already too late. The artifact's power peaked, sending waves of force rippling through reality itself. Stone walls cracked and reformed. Time seemed to bend, and the very air shimmered with possibility. In that moment of ultimate crisis, as mother and daughter stood at the crossroads of fate, the true cost of their choices became devastatingly clear. The future of their world hung by a thread, and the price of salvation would be higher than either had imagined. The ancient chamber pulsed with an otherworldly glow, its crystalline walls reflecting the raw power that coursed through the air. Essen stood at its center, her silver-streaked hair floating in the energy currents that swirled around her. The weight of generations pressed down upon her shoulders as the truth of what needed to be done became devastatingly clear. The Earth's core whispered secrets that only she could hear, each revelation more terrible than the last. Behind her, Nasun watched with eyes that held both love and determination, her young face marked by wisdom far beyond her years. The choice that lay before them would reshape not just their world, but the very fabric of existence itself. Time seemed to slow as the ancient machinery hummed to life, responding to their presence. The obelisks outside began their haunting dance, casting long shadows that stretched across the land like fingers of fate. Hoa's alabaster form shimmered between reality and something else entirely, his presence both comforting and terrifying. The chamber's crystals began to sing, a melody of power and sacrifice that brought tears to their eyes. Each note carried the weight of countless lives, countless choices, countless possibilities. The price of power became clear. But was it one they were willing to pay? The decision point arrived with the force of a thunderclap. The chamber's energy reached its crescendo as mother and daughter faced each other across the divide of purpose and understanding. Outside, the world held its breath. The obelisk's dance became frenzied, their ancient power threatening to tear reality apart. Shafa's presence lingered at the edges of consciousness, a reminder of all that had been lost and all that could still be saved. As the final moment approached, the very fabric of their world trembled. The choice would change everything. But who would be the one to make it? The chamber's light pulsed one final time, and in that moment, destiny itself hung in the balance. The air shimmered with residual energy as Essen stood at the threshold of what once was impossible. The crystalline structures around her pulsed with an otherworldly glow, each beat synchronized with the Earth's dying heartbeat. She could feel the weight of countless generations pressing down upon her shoulders, their hopes and fears intertwined with her own. The chamber, vast and ancient, held secrets that had waited millennia to be unveiled. As silver threads of power wove through the air, she realized that every choice, every sacrifice had led to this singular moment. The ground beneath her feet trembled, not with destruction, but with possibility. Behind her, Hoa's presence provided an anchor to reality, his crystalline form catching and refracting the ambient light in mesmerizing patterns. Nasun's approach, changed everything. The air crackled with tension as mother and daughter faced each other across the chamber, their powers intertwining in visible streams of energy. The ancient machinery hummed around them, responding to their presence like a sleeping giant stirring to life. Hoa and Shafa watched from opposite sides, their own energies adding to the complex web of forces filling the space. Time seemed to slow as Nassun raised her hand, her eyes reflecting the same determination that had driven her across continents. The choice before them transcended personal vengeance or salvation. It was about the very future of their world. The chamber's crystals began to sing, a haunting melody that spoke of endings and beginnings intertwined. The transformation began with a whisper. As mother and daughter reached their understanding, the very fabric of reality seemed to bend around them. The ancient systems dormant for so long awakened to their combined will. Hoa's form began to shift, his crystalline structure resonating with the changes rippling through the chamber. The world above them was changing, but here, in this moment, something even more profound was taking place. As the last pieces fell into place, the chamber filled with light so bright it seemed to wash away the boundaries between past and future. The price was high, but the reward, the promise of a new dawn, made it worthwhile. As the light faded, what remained was not an ending, but a beginning, written in the language of hope and sacrifice. The earth itself seemed to exhale, as if releasing a breath held for thousands of years.
Thank you for venturing into this realm with me. If you crave more enchanted worlds, mythical battles, and secrets whispered from ancient pages, join the Guild of Storybound Explorers. Subscribe now and ring the bell to unlock every new quest the moment it drops. The next chapter awaits. Will you answer the call?